This podcast is sponsored by Relevant. It's a new iOS app to consolidate the media you want to see in a place you control. With Relevant, you stay up to date with things you're actually interested in. You tell Relevant what's relevant to you, and you'll be given all the content you love from all across the internet, all in one place. It's available on iOS devices and coming soon to Android. Be the first to know with Relevant.
What's up, everybody? It's the Poorly Edited Podcast coming at you live from the WXLV radio station, The X. I'm Chandler Davis. I'm here. I'm your host. I got some other hosts. I got some other people also that are helping me host. Who are you guys?
My name is Coffee Guy.
Still?
My name's Patrick Lilly.
We got Josh Brennan, Joshy B on the camera. What's up? And we got Robo Brennan looming over me, also recording another angle or not. I actually don't know if that camera's on. Either. I don't think that camera's on. And we also have someone else in the room.
I'm Lizzy Kates.
Yeah. Anyway. No,
it is what it is, folks.
Lizzie's always tagging along. You're our...
What's that supposed to be?
What are you? What do you do?
Right now, I'm the social media.
Yeah, you are.
You already replaced Amras?
Yeah, that's crazy. We're Lab 212 now, by the way. If you missed it last week.
She's listening, and she's like, oh.
Probably. She's like, oh, that's how they're going to do it? That's how they tell me? Live on the air, you're fired.
Remember when we thought that would be the last time we were at WXLV last week? And
Yeah.
Like, this is the last time we're going to be there.
And we all started crying and hugging each other. And now we're here again. Because I guess they're just going to wait until, I said, today is the day that they were supposed to start knocking down walls down here. And we're here doing the show. And I said, what's probably going to happen is they're going to start tearing down the walls while we're filming this show. And so it's just going to be crumbling around us. And I mean, this will be the last show then. It won't even be the last one here. It'll be the last one ever.
Normally that happens metaphorically, like every single week. But now it's actually going to happen. So I'm excited. I'm pumped.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for this.
They're actually tearing down the studio because of our show.
I don't blame them at all.
Yeah. They were like, we can't even allow this premises.
How do we get rid of them? They just keep coming back.
The only way is to destroy the vessel in which they go live.
Is it going to be like an Indian graveyard thing where they're going to build another one on top? And we're just
Native American graveyard.
Is that how they said it? Listen.
Who, the colonists?
Yeah.
From Europe?
Yeah.
No, that is not how they said it.
Yeah,
I heard they were very sympathetic.
Well,
it's not funny, actually. That was an awful period of history.
No,
and then
really
almost
bad.
all the years for like, you know what? It just recently became not that bad. Like it was pretty awful from the moment they got here. You know, Lizzie and I went to a town that's near me, back home, way back home. You know, like from the old country where I'm
did you
from.
go down a country road?
Yeah, right. And
take you home?
there's a town out there called Hazleton. Not shout out to Hazleton.
I've heard of that.
And
Is this where you went the other day and Pat was talking about it on stream?
no. Where? Oh, you talked about it on stream. I didn't listen to
what
that.
was the name? Oh, yeah, all right. I know.
We'll talk about that in a second. But good job.
That was
Nothing
an
happened.
accident.
It was
That was
an
an
accidental bell. So we went up to Hazleton, and in Hazleton, they have a huge statue of Christopher Columbus in their main square. And what is troubling, but it's troubling for a few reasons. One, because Christopher Columbus, horrible person, did nothing good at all. Nothing worth having a statue for.
He went to the wrong place, and now he's remembered forever.
He went to the right. Never stepped foot in this continent. Like he never stepped foot in North America.
He also wasn't aiming here. He was aiming somewhere else, and he missed.
No, and what's funny is like there's this misconception that they thought the world was flat at that point, but that they didn't actually think that. Like,
no, the entire point of his voyage was to go around the world.
right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, we did it.
No.
Yeah.
And he also just like, I mean, he was a tyrant, you know?
Yeah.
He was such a crazy dude. He went over, I guess, what did he land in Haiti, I think?
No, I don't think it was Haiti, but it was somewhere
It's in the
around
Caribbean.
there.
Yeah.
And he just killed tons of natives.
It
and
didn't start out
pillaged.
that way. Like at first,
No.
he was just like, all right, I'm going to leave for a little bit. Nobody mess anything up. And then he'd come back to like literal fires.
Yeah.
And then it went downhill.
Yeah.
And he started being really mean.
Yeah. And man, yeah, he was a not cool guy, and everyone immortalizes him with a national holiday.
Yeah.
And they still teach it in schools for some reason. It's very troubling. It's very upsetting. Shout out to Christopher Columbus. This podcast is sponsored by Christopher Columbus. I'm just kidding. But Pat has been live streaming to Twitch since last week when we started. We launched Lab 212 officially. The company's public. We're public. It's all out on the table now. And Pat's been live streaming along with Mitchell Fenn,
Of course.
to Twitch every day almost.
Pretty much.
Been
5 days a week.
it's exhausting. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of seeing you guys go live all the time. That's how often.
And
it is.
we're done. So.
And we're done. We're
I feel
canceled.
bad because in our like group chat on Facebook, I'm like, "Hey, I'm live. Come watch me."
Mm-hmm.
Every
That's what you're
time.
supposed to do.
I know
Well, no,
it is, but I feel like I'm annoying.
And
you
I
guys
usually
already.
watch. No,
I usually watch as well.
I try to
Yeah,
watch
Zach-
if I'm home,
Zach's
if I'm
there
able.
for me most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's really good at that somehow. For the person who seemingly is working the most often, you manage to be in the streams all the time.
I've missed it the past couple of days. I've been busy.
Wasn't
Me
this
too.
morning? I was alone.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
I was
Pat.
working. That's what happens when you stream on a Friday, or what day is it? I don't even know.
Monday.
A Monday morning.
and it's like everyone's going to work.
Yeah, and
That's a good point.
Lizzy and I were out to breakfast. I couldn't watch because I was in a dead zone. I'm sorry.
Today, my viewership was my friend from the internet. He was talking to me, which is cool. Shout out to you. And then this
Doesn't
dude
even
hit
get
me
a
up.
name drop.
No,
Wow.
this dude hit me up in the last 5 minutes of stream. He's like, "Follow for follow," and I'm like, "No." And he
Did you
followed
do
me
it?
anyway?
You gotta
No,
Oh,
do
nice. Oh, you should do it.
I gotta follow.
And then you unfollow him later.
That's what he did.
Okay.
He followed me,
Really?
and I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna follow you back. And then he unfollowed me
Oh.
Good job, dude.
and left the stream.
Good job, dude.
Wow. Shout out to him.
Shout out to you, dude. Fall for fall. Yeah, so Pat was referring to a trip that we took on, what was it, Saturday?
Seems like years ago.
Yeah, it does. It seems,
Well,
yeah.
from what I understand, you were abducted, Pat,
I was.
right?
Yeah.
Because you were
Yes.
supposed to get home to give me something important for work-related things,
That was
and you're
part
like,
of it.
"I got kidnapped. I'm sorry."
That and my girlfriend, me and my girlfriend, was supposed to hang out, which ended up not happening because of you guys.
Is it because you were late?
Yeah,
No, really?
yeah.
Oh, dude, that's so. Were you upset?
I'm still annoyed at Amrest for this.
Was your girlfriend mad at you?
I think so. She didn't say anything, but I don't think she was happy about
Well,
it.
you're going to see MRS in a few hours, so I can't wait for that.
Does your girlfriend already hate Amrest even though she hasn't met her?
I have no idea.
Well, we'll arrange that.
Okay.
We'll make sure it happens.
yeah.
It just takes a few more occurrences like that. I'm sure you're never stepping foot in that house around her if she.
I mean,
You mean like tonight?
Yeah. I mean, like if it's not for work related things.
yeah, it was me. I was like, so I made plans with my girlfriend to hang out around 7.
As you do.
And then I went to hang out, and then you guys were in the area, so I'm like, hey, you want to get something to eat? And then Amrest took us on like a 5-hour adventure. For some
Well, she
reason.
was like, "Oh, hey, just come with me really quick to. I just gotta go to my grandmother's house really quick. I got
The one
some
that
stuff
she
up."
always talks about with the
Yeah,
house. Okay.
she lives in Lehighton. Well, it's not true. We found out not true at all. So we get on I knew something was wrong when we got on the turnpike and we started going through toll booths.
Oh no.
And then she was like, well, actually, I mean, we're going through Lehighton, but she actually lives in Weatherly. Now, I'm from down that way, and I know that Weatherly, not close to here.
No.
That's for sure.
I can confirm that.
It's about an hour away from here. And so Pat was like, I'm not getting home on time. Like
This was 10 minutes into the trip, too.
yeah, we very quickly realized this. And then
We left at like, we left at like 3:30. She's like, my grandma lives in Lehighton. So I'm like, it's like 40 minutes away.
yeah,
So we can spend 2 hours there and still get home on time.
right. No,
No.
it was a straight up road trip.
It was.
And it just kept like Amrest kept piling on like other things that we had to do.
As she does.
She really held back a lot of information about the nature of the trip. Because we thought it was just going to be a routine milk run. You know, we go to her grandmother's house, pick some stuff up, whatever to leave. Like
Drop
she was
off the
saying.
milk.
Yeah. And then things start to get a little weird as the trip progresses. Because we're like she keeps like saying weird, ominous things about like where we're going. She keeps saying conflicting information about what we're going to be doing there. And I'm just like, what's going on? We start to get into some territory out in the boonies, like straight up, just like it's very rural, nothing around.
No internet connection.
Yeah.
No cell phone signal.
And we come into this town, which is called Weatherly, and I've only been there once or twice before, and I didn't exactly remember it being as scary as it was. Like we get into the town, and it's just like, it's kind of like at the beginning of a horror movie, you know, when the teens arrive at the scary town with all the scary people. It was very like Resident Evil 2. And so there's all the village people like from the town.
All the village people, they were singing. It was weird.
Yeah, and
they broke up a while ago.
Yeah, the people just looked scary. They were eyeing us up like we were they were eyeing us up like we were like the newcomers, you know, like, and we didn't belong.
They could smell it on you.
Yeah, and so we would drive by and they'd just like watch our car. I'm not joking. This is real. And we're progressing through the town. There's like nothing. Like there's no ATMs. Like it's a very small town, and the cell phone reception is non-existent now when we're in here. And we're like, we can't even contact the outside world if we need help, if something happens. It was just a recipe for disaster. And then we're like, and then Amherst is like, well, she's not at her house. My grandmother isn't at her house. She's actually, she's at the hospital.
She kept referencing a nursing home. And we're like, is she in the nursing home? Does she work at the nursing home? We don't know.
Yeah, she's like, oh, she's in a nursing home. I'm like, oh, her grandmother's going to be like, so old. Yeah. Like, she's not even going to know, like, what's going on when we get there. Like, and so we arrive. We're coming through, you know, it opens up into this wide expanse area, and we're like driving through these big fields, and the small elementary school with a tow truck as its symbol and mascot for some reason. That's like where we were. That's the kind of place we were in.
So it was, what time were we there? It was on Friday because school was in session, and we got there like during school, and it looked deserted.
It was just quiet.
You couldn't hear there was like no children visible at all.
Yeah, you could hear a pin drop.
Yeah,
and so we come around this corner, and there's this big facility, and this facility aesthetically looks like a bunker. It looks like the Dharma Initiative from Lost. If anyone's familiar with that, shout out to you.
Thanks. Wow.
And so we're approaching, and there's this big sign on the ground. And it says Weatherwood, and we're like, "What's going on right now? Is this?" She's like, "Oh yeah, this is where my grandmother is." I'm like, "Your grandmother lives at like some research test facility in the middle of nowhere. Like, what is going on?" And like we get out, and it's just dead quiet. Like there's nothing. I mean, it's like a nice day, but it's just weird. Like it's so quiet, and there's like no people out anywhere. And we're like walking towards this building, and we walk in through the doors of the building, and there's this old man just sitting in a wheelchair, just staring at the front doors. He's alone. There's no one else around. It's just one old man sitting in a wheelchair staring at us when we walk in the door. Like he was just facing the doors for just I don't have no idea how long he was there or how long he's been sitting there. And he just looks at us and doesn't say anything. And then we just like walk past him, and we're like walking through the halls of this place. And it's just it's very scary. Like the atmosphere, no one really talks to us really. And the people who do is kind of like, Lizzy kept comparing it to, what was it?
Shutter Island.
Oh yeah, Shutter Island. So if you've seen that movie, that's not a very good setup for anything. And we finally find one of the doctors who looks like the kind of doctor that later become the antagonist. You know?
Yeah.
Like he's very
oversized lab coat.
Yes, he had a lab coat on, white lab coat. He's bald, and he looks like he's like acting nice, but he would like turn, you know, later on in the movie, like turn on you really quick. And so he's like, "Oh
the
yeah,
doctor from Stranger Things 2, right?"
Hey, haven't seen
you
it.
Not seen that? What?
No.
What's wrong?
It just came out, dude.
That's a good point.
And so he's like, "Oh yeah, your grandma's this way," and he's like leading us, and we get to like these two locked, closed doors, with, like a keypad on the wall.
Before that, we went down a stairwell. And Emrys tried to open the door at the bottom. He's like, "Oh no, you got to press that button." And there was just like a weird comical red button.
Yeah, it was.
It seemed like it was there for no reason. So you got to press that.
Yeah. And so we get down in the lower levels of the facility, and we get to these locked doors with the keypad, and he walks up to the keypad and he starts typing in the code, and he goes to Amrys. He's like, "Now hold that door and open it and make sure nobody gets out. Like when I open this door, you have to make sure you get in and nobody gets out." And we were like,
"You're gonna start running as you open the door."
Yeah, we were like, what did he just say? Like, I said that out loud. I was like, what? And like, Amras was like, what? And then
that's how you get locked in. And then the next people that come, he's like, all right, open the door, make sure nobody gets out. And you're like, help us.
So we get it. So like the code unlocks and we like pile in really quick. And sure enough, there was like an older lady who was like waiting at the doors and she's like, can I come with you? And we were like, dude, what? Like, what's going on? And we were like, no. And we just keep going.
Amras hugged her immediately too.
Well, yeah, I bet.
Amras,
I'm sure.
The lady was she acted like she knew Amras so much that Amras for a second actually believed that she knew her.
When we walked in, I thought that was her grandma.
Right. That's how warm of a welcome it was from this lady. And Amras was like, I have no idea who that is. I'm like, what?
That's just because she needed to get out of there.
Right.
That's scary and sad and weird. And we should go there.
It was very,
Should bring Josh and we can film it.
We finally found her grandmother who actually happened to work there, which is a little more reassuring.
It was weird how we found her too, because the doctor's like leading us down this hallway, and he's like, "Oh, you hear that? She's coming," and then leaves us, and you just hear like this cart coming around the corner, and I'm like, "What's going on?" That's the weirdest way to give directions ever.
He's like, "Just wait here, she's coming." Like he never saw her,
and then he just
left. We turn around, he's gone. Like
the door, we see the door like closing, the door we can't open.
Yeah. We're like, no. And one of the lines that her grandmother said to us when we were talking about the facility, she was like, yeah, I mean, they're all here and, maybe they're a little, whatever, but I mean, they're all happy here.
Okay.
And we were like, what? Like, that just sounds like what the antagonist would say about the evil facility where they're holding people hostage
in
and
a strange
brainwashing
town.
them.
Right. Of a different
we were saying this stuff as it was happening.
Yes, this is all commentary.
Because like Amras and her grandmother left then, and we were like, what is going on?
We were terrified.
Where are we?
It was such a jarring experience.
So they walked away, and then we were waiting for them to come back. They had to go get something, I guess, in where we were. And then we like look over into this room, and Amras is like wheeling a patient in front of the TV. I'm like, does she work here now? Did they get her?
But what made it even creepier was that everyone was like, help me. Not everyone, but the lady that Amras was wheeling was like, help me.
Yeah. And we were just like, this is not good. And so we were looking, I found like they have a chapel in the facility. When Amras left us alone to just roam around.
It happened a couple times.
And we're like, this is how we get picked off.
Yeah.
And I found a chapel that they have in the facility, and we like looked through the window, and it was like all dark, but the only thing that illuminated the room was like this digital stained glass window pane that like illuminated the whole room. And it just looked so scary. It looked like that's where they would do the sacrifices.
They gotta do it somewhere.
Yeah.
It had every hallmark of like a Resident Evil game.
Right.
There was a black and white photo where it's like, this is this facility from the 1970s. I'm like, this is going to come in later when I have to put 3 crests in a statue and the chapel's going to open up.
There's like
the spooky monster in the picture moves.
Yeah.
And it opens up. And
oh, wait, we skipped a part.
Go on.
We were walking towards, Amras left us again. We were walking towards the chapel. We ran into the same dude we saw when we first walked in, and he pointed to Lizzy and said, I like her.
Oh,
yep, that happened.
Repeatedly. It was terrifying.
Like Amras was talking to him and tried to get him to move past that. He's like, I like her. And I was like, oh.
Oh, she's first. And
that's not good.
And then we're talking to her grandmother, and she's like, yeah, I mean, I've been having problems with my phone. The entire town doesn't have data anymore. Like it's just gone. Like it just stopped working for the entire town now. And I'm just like, this is not normal. Like, is everyone okay with this here? Like, it's not how normal things should be.
Like, we don't watch TV much anymore after that statue was erected.
Yeah.
After that new guy came into town and took over, we've
got new things to do. We're happy here.
This is so weird. I wish I was there.
Yeah, that was the vibe. It was like I was annoyed at that point because we're like, it's like 5 o'clock. I realized there's no way I'm getting home until like 9 at this point, and I'm like, the made me more annoyed is like I should be really mad right now, but this is so surreal. I'm enjoying it. Like this is like not what I was expecting. This is super weird. It was awesome.
And there wasn't even like I wish it was embellishing at all, but we weren't even blowing anything out of proportion. It was just straight up that weird the entire time.
But also like Amras is doing stuff that like she went to try and hook up Bluetooth to her grandmother's car, so she had to go out to the car to do that. So we get out there, and she parked next to what she thought was her grandmother's car, and she's like, "This isn't her car. This isn't her car. We have to go find her car." And I'm like, "This is the exact make and model of the car you're talking
And
about."
color. She's
So
like,
she's
no,
like, "No,
this isn't it.
And she just like drives to a different parking lot. And she's like, "This is it."
What?
She goes and gets to the car. And she's like, "Yeah, none of this works. I'm gonna go give this back to my grandma. Then we can leave." And then so we're sitting in the car, and this dude from like he was riding a lawnmower from like the 1950s, going really slowly in front of us.
Yeah.
It was like a John Deere, but it was
It was so
No, it
old.
was a Ford.
It was a-
Remember?
I was right,
You
it
were
was a
like, "Built
Ford."
tough."
Oh, yeah.
good joke.
That's really before tough. It's that old, still working. Yeah, it was just, it was very like juxtaposed by how nice, like beautiful of a day it was outside, but all these creepy things were going on, and it was just like, no, dude, like this guy's mowing the lawn, but he's somehow making this scary for us, like mowing this lawn. Like, why does he have to be driving such an old tractor? It was like the town hadn't progressed technologically from a certain point, you know, like they just hadn't kept up anymore. Because like I said, there's no ATMs. One of the buildings that Amres talked about was that the fire department, the video store, what were the other things?
I want to say like
Pizza place.
And
pizza
the pizza
place.
place.
police. I feel like police department was there too.
There was a ambulance.
It was all in one
Ambulance
building.
corps. Yeah.
EMT.
Why do they need a police station when everyone's happy?
Everybody's happy. That actually turned into the video store.
Oh, okay.
That makes sense.
It's called Everyone's Happy.
It was happy video store.
Or else.
It's all just VCRs full of static.
Oh, God.
It just eats tapes only. All of them just eat your tapes. So needless to say, we were scouting locations and I was writing stuff down like when we got back in the car. And I think like there is a potential that we might either film there or it might inspire a short film that we might do in the future.
This was happening while we were there, while the dude was driving by in the tractor. We're like, all right, so we're going to make a screenplay out of this. What's the turn thing? What goes wrong? Because there's so much that could go wrong.
Yeah, like what's that moment where you're like, oh, this is it, like this is what's going on. And so we were like brainstorming, like while it was happening, just like this would be funny if we made this into a film. And
We would not make it very far in this kind of situation.
If it was even more real, because I can't even say if it was real, because it was real. It was actually happening.
If something went wrong.
If something went wrong, which it was like the worst thing that almost went wrong is that we finally exited the building and we turn around and we look at the doors and there's just this huge sign somehow we missed that just says this building has a confirmed diagnosis of influenza and any visitors should not visit until like this amount for like so long. And we just saw that and we were like, cool, we have the flu now. Awesome.
Or what they're saying.
Or what what they're saying is the flu, but it's actually the virus that makes everyone go crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
This wasn't even the end. So then we went to Amres's grandmother's house for some reason. I think so Amres could steal her mint.
Yeah. Mint plant.
Yeah, because
okay.
Amres wanted to start a garden, I guess. So we got there
Gotta
and
be
we
careful. Mint's a weed.
Yeah.
Take over.
Yes.
So we get there and we go inside. And the house just like reeks of something, and none of us can figure it out. We're like one step in, we're like, we can't do this. But then
Really?
Amres is like, come on, guys, you're being wimps. So then we like go in, and I mean, she was like cooking. It seemed like just a pot full of sauerkraut, and it was just
We never confirmed.
No, we didn't open it.
I know sauerkraut. My whole family, that's like a huge staple of their cuisine, their home cooked kind of party food.
I had some last night.
Awful. It's gross.
It's gross. I don't like it.
I mean, there's a lot of it around here.
My mom made it, and I said, yeah, I'll have it, and I didn't eat it.
Yeah, and then like you know, her grandmother's house was creepy. There was a laundry chute. There was a area sectioned off in the basement for coal because they used to have a coal stove, and then
I've seen that.
There's a well.
There was a well
Or something. I don't know.
That was weird.
was
There was
weird.
just a
I don't trust any wells at all.
I
I don't trust wells that give me water, but that's
The ring
Well.
was a staple in my childhood, so
you mean because it
That
like,
explains
you
a
mean
lot.
it happened to you or like what what does that mean?
no. She's the girl.
How involved was the ring in your
I
childhood?
was the girl in my haunted house.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that?
Do we need
Should
to
I?
go to a break?
We do
Like,
very
okay.
soon. I just didn't want to cut off.
Wow, you don't want to hear about my
Thank
life.
God.
I didn't
Not
want to cut
really.
off
I
this
mean,
story because it's ridiculous. But yeah, we'll
be right back.
We'll be right back with yeah.
Well.
yeah. And we're back.
Woo.
More creepy stuff. Not really.
Not really.
We're gonna move away from the creepy stuff for now.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that story. We enjoyed it happening to us. Half of us
Actually, you know what the best part of that story was?
What?
You were talking. They were like the capstone for this was that we were going to go to some great restaurant called Platz's.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this place sounds great. I wonder what's there. Like Chandler was talking about it a bunch, and I'm like, this must be really good. And then he's like, oh no, they changed it to PJ Wellahan's.
Yep.
I'd been to that restaurant.
We have all been there together.
Yeah, no, it was just a PJ Wellahan's, and I'm like, this is all for nothing.
Yeah, because that was the thing that Pat was like, that's the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah,
you know,
like,
like I'll deal with all
this.
this.
Must be great. I've heard you talk about it before.
Yeah.
And then I just sat in the car being like, I've been there.
I didn't realize it got converted. That makes a lot of sense now. Yeah. Well, we ended up going to a place called Bonnie and Clyde's in Lehighton, which is actually, it was pretty good. I was pretty satisfied. There was an
It was a
interesting
theme restaurant about robbing banks in the 1940s.
Well, it was actually
Themed
it was actually
Whoa.
it was actually in an old bank that had like an actual vault still.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Like I guess they renovated, you know, like an old bank and all that.
Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah. Okay. So we also saw Star Wars: The Force Awakens. I'm just kidding. We also saw Marvel's Avengers: Infinity War this weekend. Was that the weekend?
What's that about?
I don't
It was
know.
on Tuesday.
What was that about? It was. It's about superheroes, I think.
I wasn't even there, and I know what day you saw it.
Yeah, I
When
am
was
not
that?
good at
I think
that.
it was Tuesday.
It was because $5.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, $5 movie night. Shout out to $5 movie
Wait, that
night.
happened before. Oh, wait. Yeah, no. Okay,
Yes.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So really quick, I mean, I don't want to make this the Infinity War podcast because I don't really have a ton to say about this film, but we just go. Pat, Lizzy, and I think. And Josh has seen it like 4 times. Somehow, never with us. But Zach didn't get to see it.
Amras was there too.
Who?
Amras.
Oh yeah, Amras was there. Yeah, because Pat and I actually, so we were going. I was like, "Yo, Pat, do you want to come to the movies with me?" He's like, "I'm already going to see a movie with
I
my
watched
sisters
this go
tonight."
down in the
And I was
Twitch
like,
chat.
"Oh man, okay." And then we're like talking back and forth, and we realize we're both going to the same showing at the same time at the same theater to see the same movie, and we're like, all right, we're seeing that movie together anyway.
Where were your seats? Because you have to reserve seats.
Nah,
at that one.
we did sit separately.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to be like, because I was going with my sisters. I didn't want to be like, yeah, see you guys. I got friends here.
Yeah. But you were only a few rows ahead of it. That crowd was really rowdy, though. That was one of the most annoying crowds.
I don't like that.
Not for that movie. I didn't like that.
He clapped for Jurassic World.
I think that was a joke.
No. You
That
said
was not a
you
joke.
said that like you said that like
not
I
Chandler.
did that.
Oh,
No,
somebody
no.
else.
Oh, I forgot to mention
Yeah.
there was a guy. Go ahead.
In the huge pack movie theater, there were other people.
Wow.
And one guy like clapped for the Jurassic World, which by the way, that movie's gonna be awful. That movie's gonna be
I
terrible.
work with a guy who only talks about Jurassic Park. Only talks.
What do you mean?
He only talks about dinosaurs. Every
his name
time I
Michael
see him, he
Crichton?
goes, "Dinos!" Every time I
What?
see him, I swear.
How is that a personality trait?
I think he saw that movie when he was like 4, and he
Right.
just stopped aging mentally. That was the peak.
Just ruined him.
Shout out to Dinos, guys.
Shout out to Dinos guy. He's a nice guy.
Is he?
He just really likes Jurassic Park.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm down with it.
But every time I see him, he tells me when the next one's
I'd love
coming
to
out.
talk about dinosaurs.
No, I
Dinosaurs
like-
are fascinating.
You can have
I like
him
the
on.
fact that the first trailer for Jurassic Park, Fallen Kingdom, was like, we're going back to the island to save him. And then like it seems like that's the entire movie is them running
But
away
it's
from
not.
the volcano. And they're like, then this trailer is like, but there's a twist. Then they go back to the mainland. And I'm like, this has made me exactly the same amount of interested as I was.
And I was just like, well, at least I don't have to see the movie anymore because they ruined seemingly every plot point that could be possibly major or surprising. It's like, okay, I love when trailers do that. It saves me the time.
He also calls us all by different character names.
Ooh,
of
who are
Jurassic
you?
Park. I don't actually remember, which
What?
is a
Wow.
shame, but I think I'm the Jeff Goldblum character.
What?
Dude,
What's his
that's
name?
so
Dude,
It's
flattering.
Dr.
Moreau.
Malcolm.
No, that's not me. That's not me. I don't know.
It's not Dr. Moreau.
I know.
It's his actual name.
I don't know. Jeff Goldblum.
You're right.
He's the apartments.com guy. Jeff Goldblum's in Jurassic World, which once again they ruined that cameo as well. You know, like I already know that's gonna happen now.
Like
I
the
don't
coolest
care.
part of that going to see that, I'd be like, oh, Jeff Goldblum's saying something, but now it's like
Yeah.
I can watch the trailer and get his entire part in the movie.
That's probably the only bit he has.
Did you know Jeff Goldblum was born in Pittsburgh?
Really? He seems way too. He seems way too intelligent to be born in Pittsburgh.
Wow. You can't just say that.
Dang.
There are people listening.
From Pittsburgh, though.
It's Dr. Ian, mathematician Dr. Ian Malcolm.
Yeah, he calls me Ian Malcolm.
That's
Wow,
high
dude,
praise.
that's high praise. He's the
Yeah.
main character.
I know a guy wants to be friends with
I
you.
mean, Zach would be fine, but whatever.
Well, all
That's
right.
cool. No one else calls me that.
I wish I had someone that interesting that I
Yeah.
work with. Like, I work with really boring people. I'm sorry if you're listening. You're not. I work with really boring
Got
people.
Pittsburgh, the people you work with.
Getting them all
the entire town of whatever it was called.
Weatherly.
Yeah.
And we're about to get an Infinity War because, frankly, you know what? To be fair, Infinity War was the first Marvel movie I've seen since Doctor Strange, at least, I can say, that felt really like a comic book movie. Yeah. Some of the Marvel movies kind of feel like it feels like Marvel made into a movie. But like this movie felt like it's a comic book movie, you know, like traditional, like it didn't like shy away from anything that was too
What other
tropey.
Marvel movie has been like that? Just so I can sort of get a feel.
Like
Iron
the
Man.
first Avengers, I would say.
Okay.
Wait, are you saying
It's not. It wasn't. It's like it's over the top. You know, it's really over the top. Really like almost cartoonish in the and like very comic book like. You know, but there's others like the first Captain America. I don't know, man. Like the Iron Mans are a little less Marvel and more like less comic booky.
Like Iron
They're
Man
more like
1.
real.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Iron Man 1's like really grounded in reality. It tries to like make it seem more real.
Yeah, I watched
you know?
I watched the scene where he went and he was like fighting a bunch of people who were like massacring other people, and that scene felt like really cool. It was more like a war movie than like a superhero movie. It wasn't just him like flying around, like
Iron
punching.
Man.
Yeah, Iron Man.
Yeah.
He was like, I don't know. It was really cool.
Yeah.
That's a good
It was.
movie.
It is.
It is. It was really. It's what jump started the whole cinematic universe. I do believe.
Thanks
And
a
here
lot.
we are.
Yeah, and here we are. This is how many years in the making?
10.
10
Enough.
years. Yeah, enough. Enough is enough. But you know, the villain is great. That's
I
probably
think he's the best part of the movie.
yeah, just like Age of Ultron. The villain is the villain is
Did you even
great.
see Age of Ultron?
No, but I've heard that's the big draw.
Yeah, don't go.
But yeah, Thanos is a really, really well done villain. And
I'd like to see it.
He's somehow well acted, even though he's a
CG.
large purple thumb. It's like
Yeah.
this first Spy Kids movie.
someone calls him Grimace. I
Yeah,
think
that's Chris
Peter
Pratt.
Quill calls
Yeah,
him
I'm
Grimace during the movie. I'm just like, there was a few references that really, I was just like, oh, okay. They reference a lot of pop culture stuff in this movie, which is kind of weird. Like having Spider-Man and Peter Quill in the same movie, there ends up being a lot of references to things, which kind of felt weird. But getting to see everybody together was interesting. There's a lot of different storylines that play out. I said to Lizzy, this movie feels like the third act is happening the entire time. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's like constantly like it's about to come to a head like the whole way through. You know, like there's really no moment of, you know, like, oh, here's
You can
the
chime in
fall,
whenever you
here's
want,
the chill part, or here's like whatever, like let's
Yeah, there was just they brought like how many different movies have been
Yeah.
consolidated into this one? It's
Yeah.
like a bunch of different series into this, so they all had like their thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
So they all kind of had to be doing stuff that was exciting the entire time. There was no time for like setup.
The first Avengers movie was almost like that.
Hot
in a way.
Pocket 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I somehow caught
We
a
got
hot
hot
pocket.
pocketed.
We just got hot pocketed. Here on the show,
All right.
we get bombarded with actually hot pockets.
Is our show so boring that the guy who runs the station has to throw hot pockets at us just to make it
He's
interesting?
like, stop talking about Infinity War, please.
He's
No one
listening to
cares.
us, and he's like, I gotta spice this up.
In classic hot pocket fashion,
In classic-
half of this is incredibly hot. The other half is like ice cold. It feels like an ice cube.
In classic Chris Andrews fashion, always spicing up the podcast with great stories of Sigourney Weaver and throwing hot pockets at us. It's a huge draw to being here at WXLV.
Was that the hot
the
side or
X.
the cold side?
Both.
Get a little
Sit
bit
down
of
the middle.
the best of both worlds.
Expect a video.
Like this movie's very first of all it's not first of all, I've been talking about this for a while.
yeah.
It's not first,
Like
but
15th of all.
yeah, 15th of all. Not seeing Thor Ragnarok, big issue. So if you haven't seen Ragnarok,
I heard about that.
you should go see it, because I was really confused for like the first 20-30 minutes of the movie.
Did
like
you go and watch it then?
no, still
Okay.
haven't.
It's on Netflix, I think.
Oh, is it? It is. That's right. Yeah, I'll have to watch that. But that plays into what makes the movie more comic booky, you know, because it's very like cosmic. There's a lot of stuff that happens in space, and there's a lot of like, because Thanos is an interstellar tyrant murderer, and so he's been doing this for years all across the galaxy. So there's a lot of very space-like, crazy weird stuff that goes on in this film. But yeah, I don't know. I'd say it's really good. There's a lot of people who depart in this film, as you probably should know
come on, man.
if you're familiar with the Infinity War arc of the universe at all from the comics.
Josh is taking it to the next level today. Have you seen
he's been doing really good with the zooms.
Josh just injured himself for this.
No.
Did he injure himself on his own microphone? That's
Yes.
what it looked like from here.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Pat, what'd you think?
I liked it. I think on the scale of that they had to take on, they did a good job.
Yes.
There was a lot of little things that annoyed me, but I don't think it was possible to do this movie like 100% flawlessly.
Yeah.
There's just so many new characters coming together that are all had their own movies based on them. So how do you cram 9 different people's worth of movies into an hour, 2.5 hours?
There was a lot of characters who I was like, oh, they're really only here to do one thing just for the sake of being in the movie. It has no real relevance to anything, and you could easily do without them. But it's they just give certain people things to do just so that they have an excuse to be there. And it's just, I don't know. I felt like that a lot, which is, it's how do you manage to do that properly? It's challenging because there's so many characters to take care of, but I don't know. There's something. Bye, Josh. Josh has to go to work now.
Bye, Josh.
Josh has to go to his day job. He's actually going to watch Infinity War for the 5th time.
Let us know what you think.
Josh, quick, yell. What did you think of Infinity War? What's your verdict?
Oh, I agree completely with what you were saying.
Oh, okay, cool.
I love Thanos. I thought, I really agreed with your third section.
Yeah, yell.
They can't hear
yeah,
this at
yell.
all.
I'm sorry. Okay, I'll say what I was saying before. I completely agree with you guys. Thanos was a fantastic villain. It really, somebody that I heard review this basically said that it shouldn't have been called Marvel's Infinity War. It should have just been called Thanos. The title should have been from the perspective of Thanos, because that's really what the movie was.
It borderline is from the perspective. Yeah,
definitely.
they give a lot of development to him.
It's really a movie about him and his arc.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I really agree with what you're saying about how the entire movie is a third act. It feels like it's just building up the entire time.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to head, you're I don't know. So in terms of whether or not I was satisfied by it, I kind of left the movie going it
really leaves on you a cliffhanger, which because there is a part 2 that I knew was going to be attached to this film before it even came out, I knew that was probably, I wasn't that surprised. I was prepared for it to be a cliffhanger.
So are you all right with that then?
Am I all right with it? Does end on a note that's okay, this is a stopping point. It's not a total tease or anything, but it's just knowing that there's more that's going to go on and being how is all this resolved? The movie's already very long. It's very long. And it feels like 3 hours. And I think it is 3 hours.
Yeah,
so
it's 2:45 or something.
Yeah, that's very long. So yeah,
I was okay with it.
It was fine.
It wasn't bad.
Yeah.
But it also wasn't phenomenal.
Right.
Yeah.
It didn't give me an overwhelming sense of satisfaction with the resolution of everything, because there isn't really a resolution at that moment.
There really isn't. And again, going into that, we both knew that. And I also agree with Pat, though, that considering how much they had to get done, they did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
It could have gone a whole lot worse.
I feel like they could have streamlined some things and been there's some things they could have maybe done without to develop other things better,
Because the entire time I was thinking that they could have just completely negated Bruce Banner. But
they could have.
He wasn't Hulk. He was Bruce Banner the entire time, which just seemed like Mark Ruffalo was in the movie.
it really did.
I like Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner.
But it was more like Mark Ruffalo is dropped in this universe, and you're just what's going on? I'm scared.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like a 2-hour-long Stan Lee cameo, except he's a main character.
Oh, God.
I really do
It's
think
weird.
that they're going to do something in the second movie with him, though. I feel like this was a really minute setup to something really grandiose.
Wasn't that because he had a huge part in Ragnarok? So maybe they were okay.
Well, not even that. I think the reason, and again, having watched the movie a couple times, I kind of caught on to this. Because I watched it the first time and I was like, what's the deal with Hulk in this whole thing? And then I watched it the second time and I was like, oh, well, it's because he got his butt kicked by. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, no,
Spoilers.
I think you're right. Yeah.
That happens.
Yeah, he got his butt kicked by Thanos in the first 5 minutes, and then there's this whole thing where the Hulk is refusing. Am I allowed to say that too? I don't know. Are people?
You can't say that on the radio.
Oh no!
Chandler only spoiled the ending, kind of. So
I mean,
Not really.
Not if you don't know, because I didn't pick up on
this
it.
is such a minute facet of the movie. I feel like I can probably say it. Right?
early.
Yeah, it happens so early. Basically, the Hulk refuses to like Hulk out. He refuses to come out, and I think it's just because they're like developing this like arc of Bruce Banner and his relationship with the Hulk that'll come to a head in the second movie, but it's not even remotely satisfied in the first one. So the whole time you're just like, why is he here?
I'm always angry.
It felt like they were afraid of. It seems like they were afraid they would just win if they had the Hulk. So they're like, we're just not going to put him in the movie. You got enough people doing stuff. We can't have like another guy who's pretty broken already. Honestly, should really tone him down.
Hulk's very overpowered, and that's even known in the Marvel universe.
No, you're good.
See you, Josh. Thanks for your input.
Where'd your phone go?
Have a good time at the Infinity War again.
Thanks.
See, Josh just uses his camera to point at us like a wand, like he's doing a trick.
We're gonna have to go to a break.
We're gonna have to go to a break.
So that lasted longer than.
It did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Wow.
Oh, that's wrong. What? And we're back.
I was taking it right up to the wire with those breaks.
I was literally running around.
We managed to fit so many things that we have to do in between the breaks.
That
Like
was
everyone,
the most productive.
as soon as the break ends, everyone jumps up and they start like running around the studio. They're like, "Well, let's get this." Anyway, so a really big thing.
You got the lens cap on.
Unfortunately, Lizzie's filling in for Josh.
It's her first time with the camera.
Why can't I see them?
Robo Brennan taking over, Lizzie aiding Robo Brennan. Robo Brennan's actually back now. Yep. He's been a little on hiatus because he's been busy with his other stuff. He's
already more positive. He's made it further than we have already.
He's been on a couple shoots. He's actually helping out Peruso this summer with the film that he's working on. So just like Josh, taught him well.
Yeah. I feel like I think he's becoming self-aware and he's starting to question his own reality. But we'll get to that later. Yeah. So unfortunately, Pat, he commandeered the whole writing of this show.
Oh yeah.
So
we've already talked about a bunch of stuff I didn't write in the script. I'm kind of mad about it.
This is how it goes every week. Like, we do this together. It doesn't matter.
But so since Pat wrote like half of this show, he made it very Pat. And there's something that happened that's very near and dear to you that happened over the weekend, which is the new Arctic Monkeys album was released finally after no singles were released leading up to it. So nobody really had any idea this is going to be going into it. You've been doing your homework. You've been listening to this album like nonstop, you said.
Yeah, I pretty much haven't listened to anything else. It came out on Friday, I believe. I was listening to it from like 12:07, like that. I mean, like Friday morning until like before the show started.
Yeah, and Pat was like, everyone has to listen to this album. Of course, Zach didn't.
And didn't. Did you listen to the entire thing or just parts of it?
I fell asleep during some middle parts. I'm not gonna lie. It was because I was in the car and I was really tired because Lizzie woke me up at 9 o'clock this morning.
Wow, 9 o'clock.
What?
Sounds rough.
To get up at 9.
Yeah, well, I didn't mean it that much. She doesn't stop. Like she doesn't. I'm like, I want to go back to sleep, and she doesn't stop
do that.
trying to wake me up.
I woke up at 8:30.
That's your fault. All right. Anyway, so. As someone like I first discovered Arctic Monkeys way back in I think like 2009 or 2010 when I heard Fluorescent Adolescent, and I've been listening to them off and on since then. I really like Last Shadow Puppets and some of the work that Alex Turner did with that project, that side project that he had when the Arctic Monkeys were on hiatus after they released AM in 2013.
Yep.
And I saw them at Firefly in Dover, Delaware in 2013, which is
so jealous.
Hot off of AM coming out. If we were like front row too, it was super sick. It was super sick, Pat. Anyway, but no, they put on a great show. I really loved them. It was the first time I saw them live, and I've always been a huge fan of what they were doing. However, I heard quite a bit of AM in those following years, and it really started to wear me down. Yeah. And the more I heard that album, the more and more I didn't like it anymore. And that's kind of where I'm at now with AM, which is...
Do you not like it at all? Or is it just the worst Arctic Monkeys album to you?
I don't know if it's the worst, because there are a lot of moments. There are songs that I think nostalgically now just relate to a lot of good times, because all my friends were very much into Arctic Monkeys as well. So we heard a lot of them. But AM is just, I think, trying to disconnect myself from that is very bland when you get right down to it. You know, they have a very distinct sound for that album that they stick with, and a lot of the songs sound very similar, like same kind of chords, same kind of bass lines almost, and the subject matter of most of the songs is like exactly the same. It's all about chicks, dude. You know, it's like getting chicks, and it's like, I get it. How many different ways can you say this? Like, there's 2 songs. What is it? It's like "Are You Mine" and
Arabella? Or
no,
Do I Want to Know?
Yeah, I think it's that one. But it's essentially, so there's one song where he's like, "Are we dating?" And then there's another song where he's like, "I want to date you," and it's like those. It's just like you're saying the same things. Like
it's if you put "Do I Want to Know? Are you mine?" That's a question.
Right, exactly. And I don't know. So yeah, the subject matter of that was pretty lowbrow for me, and also the stigma of like a lot of the people who discovered Arctic Monkeys when AM came out, like in the States, it got very popular as opposed to their previous albums before that were more popular in the UK and stuff. AM was the first thing that got very successful in the States. And a lot of people that I don't really respect the musical opinions of really latched on to AM. You know, those people who are just
That's the real reason you don't like
I
it.
just heard them I just found out about them after the most recent album, and I'm a huge fan. And I'm like, you're not actually. And so those people really started to ruin it for me that liked AM. And now with this new album, Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino.
There you go. That doesn't sound like a real title for an album.
It doesn't. It's called, I think it's Tranquility Base
Hotel
and Casino. There should be a colon there, but there isn't.
Or a comma, at least.
Yeah,
No,
something.
colon.
But it just reads Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino. And this album, I'm not going to lie. After AM, I was like, first of all, I understand why they went on hiatus.
AM was not that bad of an album.
It was commercially very good, and it was formulaically very good. Like,
But
it was very.
objectively, you don't think AM was a good album?
Well, no, I'd say more subjectively, it's not as like. I think AM is crafted in a way that made it very like I think they knew what they were doing when they made that album. Like, it was gonna be very pretty and
Actually, I want to know what the first song on AM, which one it was, because it seems like I was reading a review for the current album, Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino, and so Alex Turner wrote like one of the songs, and he's like, I'm gonna base an album off this. I think it was science fiction,
which I love,
which is cool. So I wonder if he did that with all of his albums.
I don't know,
because this one seems like it's especially just Alex Turner like doing his thing. Because even like I think the review I was reading said the bassist was like,
Do I Want to Know?
That was the first song written.
Yeah,
that makes sense. But the bassist was like, yeah, this seems like Alex might just want to find another band for this, or like get more different people to do this because this is like his show. Mm-hmm. But I think I love the album. And
Which one, AM?
No, Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino. I think it's weird because it doesn't really sound like any of the other stuff. It does. It shines through certain times. Like 4 out of 5 sounds like it could have been on AM.
Yes.
But
there's very few moments that are even that reminiscent of AM, which I enjoy. But yeah, that is definitely one of the tracks where I go, okay, I see
that. It's a good song though. I like that one.
So I was so scared knowing this album was coming out because I'm like, they have two paths they can go with this. They could either keep going down the AM kind of thing and like really cash that in, because I'm sure that would have been very successful anyway. You know, if they just would have stuck with that sound, churned out another album to please those people who really liked AM that came on board after AM and became very hot in the States. And I'm sure they knew that coming into this, and instead they went the route of, I don't care, and we're going to make something completely different. We're going to change our sound entirely, and if the fans don't like that, then hey man, it's not for them. Yeah. And I was so, because I'm not going to lie, I think my expectations were pretty low, because like the bar was set at a very certain like it's okay kind of feeling for me, like after AM. So my hopes weren't very high for this, but they really surprised me. You know, they went in a totally new direction. I love their new sound. It's I think it is a concept album. Like, it's very interesting. The subject.
Introduce the album at some point. So I haven't really talked about what it is, and I think it's really cool. Like,
oh yeah.
So I guess Alex Turner's idea for this was, Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino is a basically a resort on the moon, and it sounds like he's visualizing like the 50s kind of life where it's like I don't know, just like booze and like cigarettes and stuff, and people like living sleazily.
That's what it was like, yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
remember.
it's like you're pretty old, aren't you? So it's like that on the moon, which I think is really interesting, because I feel like that. I don't know. I think the atmosphere the album creates makes it super interesting, and it like paints a picture in your mind of what it's like.
And that's what I really have enjoyed. It's so cinematic.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I liked about AM's sound, is how some of those songs can sound very like, instrumentally and stuff like that. It's very cinematic feeling, and this album takes that to a whole nother level. It's very wide sound and very cinematic and dramatic, and I really enjoy that. Like, we were just driving through Allentown, and it was making things so much more exciting just with that music playing, you know what I mean? And I love that.
So on Friday, the first day the album came out, I listened to it like 3 times that day or something, but I wasn't sure about it. And then like the weirdest scenario where I was like, so I was playing Dungeons and Dragons.
on Fridays.
I was heading home from that, and it was like midnight, and I was like, I got to deposit my paycheck. So I went to the bank at midnight, and like it was playing in my car, and the door was open, and there was like a street light over me, and I was like at the ATM, and it was like, this seems like the perfect time to listen to this album for some reason. I was like across an empty parking lot from my car that was playing it.
Ooh.
And the lighting was like just on me, and I'm like, this is weird.
The parking lot from your car with the door open while the music was playing. So I'm assuming the key was done.
Yeah, because it was midnight, and I was 4 feet from my car.
For your car. Oh, well, you said across the parking lot.
Zach, I live in Macungie. It's not like it's not a high crime rate.
Well, I don't know.
There's like 5 people there. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
That's Pat and his family.
They'll know. Yeah, they'll know.
Like, hey, wait.
They'll know each other. Hey, you're my neighbor.
I'll see my car at home anyway. So.
Stop stealing my mascara.
Yeah, and so with this album, like I might be the minority here, but I got like vibes off of like a David Bowie kind of feel.
That's what, I didn't listen to a lot of David Bowie, but I showed it to Noah, he works here at the station. He's moving vinyls, and I was helping him do that. And
it's appropriate.
I put him on in here, the album on in here, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm getting David Bowie vibes from this."
Yeah.
Actually, I want to listen to David Bowie now. I mean, I always kind of wanted to get into him.
It's
but now
that
it's like,
sound, except
like
that was genuine, like that was the time period.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's interesting. And he was always very like cosmic and like out there, kind of with like Ziggy Stardust and stuff like that. My favorite Bowie album is Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders
is that
from
the one
Mars.
that sounds like
or is that what it's called? I don't remember.
Is that the one that sounds like Tranquility Base?
Potentially.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
But yeah, all my favorite cuts are off that. But yeah, it reminded me a lot of that, and that was a very good high praise, I would say, in my opinion, because that's a very, he was a great musician, and he had a very unique sound, I think, for his time. And this album just really rubbed me the right way, and I was so pleasantly surprised.
And there's so much to go into it too.
Yeah.
How it's like the time frame was really confusing. So he's like, there's a base on the moon, right? Which I guess means in the future.
Sure.
And
but it sounds like it's happening at an older time.
Oh my
I don't want
god!
to get into this. But the cool,
it's in a galaxy
they keep bringing up this thing called the Exodus.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
is
I heard
everyone
that.
off of Earth?
It sounds like it is. I think it is a concept album. I think that's safe to say, because I heard the Exodus talk through a few different songs, and so there's clearly something stringing this together. And I really want to listen to that album.
Listen to this album.
Yeah, I really want to listen to it more intense, because I think that's what's interesting about it is, unlike a concept album like Kendrick Lamar's projects, where he's kind of like, this is what's happening, here's some story stuff, and then the songs, this is what's happening. This is more subtle. So you really have to like listen and pick the, like, I think there's these little breadcrumbs where you can be like, ooh, that's a part of this thing going on. He's referring to these things happening more in I think even a Coheed and Cambria way. I'm sure you're excited to hear that, Zach.
I was reading so leading up to like it at midnight, it was like Thursday night. I'm like, oh wait, it comes out tonight. I gotta listen to it. And I was like I was trying to find the release time. So I was reading reviews of it. And there's this it seemed like all the reviews out right then, it's like people listened to it once and they're like, they weren't too hot about it. Like, it wasn't Arctic Monkeys.
Do you listen to music reviews?
No, I only
listen to the Needle Drop, Anthony Fantano. That's the only.
It was more like I'm excited for this and I want to happen
Okay,
now. So
yeah,
I'm
I
gonna
understand.
So I'm gonna read a review
Instead
because
of
then it's
going
like
to
it's
bed
happening.
so I can listen to it right away when I wake up, I'll
Yeah, I just stayed up till midnight.
Right,
Yeah. And I was like, it seems, I don't know. I didn't get the vibe he was going for at all. At first glance, it might seem like that, but I think it is really weird. They have to listen to it like a couple times.
I see. That's
think.
weird because I didn't. I think I was so ready to accept this
Yeah.
with open arms, because of how I felt about AM, like being as kind of bland as it had gotten for me. And it's not even like from a listening to it constantly thing. I feel like the more I thought about it and really listened to it, I was like, there is not a lot going on here. Aside from some like really like dirty hooks and bass lines, there's really not much more further than that. But with this, there's so much to pick apart. I think both instrumentally, lyrically, conceptually, and the headspace that this band was in making this album. It's they waited 5 years, and this is what they come out with. And I think it's a very measured, very deliberate, well thought out response.
It's almost like Alex Turner was like, he went like on retreat and did the last Shadow Puppets, and then he came back and he's like ready to make this.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause it was really, you ever heard You're So Dark by the Arctic Monkeys? It was like a B-side on a single for One for the Road. They put One for the Road out as a single, and that was like the other song on it. But it's actually, if you go back and listen to it, it's very much in place on this album. Like you could have swapped 4 out of 5 for that song and they both would have made sense.
That's interesting.
So yeah, you should. Yeah, I was really trying to figure out where this came from, because like even like last week, I was like, it's gonna be interesting to see what it's like after he spends 5 years doing Last Shadow Puppets.
Yeah, like I mean, he was on high. They were not really kicking it, at least to my knowledge. I don't remember if the hiatus was because of creative differences between them, like taking a break, and that's why they stepped away.
Or they've just been doing it for like 7 years at that point, so maybe like they just needed a break.
They have been around for a quick minute, man.
Yeah, they have.
Since like 2003, they've been like active, playing shows in the UK. And what is this, Sheffield? Is that where they're from?
That's where they're from, yeah.
They were handing out live.
They were formed in 2002. When they formed, none of them knew how to play instruments.
What?
They're all like, we're gonna make a band, so we're all gonna learn how.
That's so interesting.
Let's all make a podcast.
None of us know how.
That's a good place to end it, I think.
Hey, I've done a podcast before this show. It was bad, but
yeah, I'm gonna till time. I'm gonna look up this hiatus thing.
Good, but yeah, it's just, I think it's a really good example of a band saying, we don't, in a good way, like, we don't really care about what the expectations are for this, and we're going to do what our hearts are set on doing creatively and as artists, no matter what the response might. And you can tell that they probably knew that the reception, because I don't think we said the reception is very polarized with this album. You have the people, like the newer fans hate it. The older fans are like, okay, I'm really into this, and you can tell they probably knew that was going to happen. They didn't release any singles off this album leading up to its release.
I think if you put singles out in this album, it would have changed it.
Yeah.
Because if you put out,
it would have changed the response.
It's just going to be another AM album, or like, I don't know. I think you have to listen to it like beginning to end. There's actually even the second and third song. It's really weird. They like, the second song goes up till the end of the track, and the third song just starts right away. So I always see that as one song, because it also flows together really nicely.
Yeah.
Which is really weird, because I don't think I've seen a lot of like album placement like that, at least in stuff I listen to. Maybe
that's why I always say Coheed and Cambria does that a lot.
I wasn't paying attention.
Like the playlist of the album, like in order, you should listen to it
because songs like so tightly interlude with each other. Like the ends of songs start the beginnings.
Like the track list is important.
Yeah, like listening to it in order is important.
I think concept albums just have to be like that.
Yeah.
Real quick, they went on hiatus because Turner wanted to work on Last Shadow Puppets, and the drummer, I think, Helders, I don't know what his first name is.
Yeah.
Played the drums on some other album. So they just didn't have time to do it, I guess.
That's my only one thing about this album is it is very calm and chill. Like that is the vibe of this album. And it is very like, I was reading a UK magazine article or whatever online, and they said it's a very like red wine and cigarette kind of chill out kind of album and sound. But they do really bench their drummer for this album.
It's really subtle stuff.
Yeah, like
he
he's really not doing a lot. He's just kind of like you know, it's not like it's just very like playing along, and he doesn't really have any moments like, because there's some heavy moments on AM, and that's one thing that I can say about that album. It goes pretty hard to this day. When I hear some of those songs, I'm like, oh man, that's so dirty, you know. But there's not really any of that I heard on this album.
They put out a music video for 4 out of 5, and there's a shot of them just filming the drummer, and it's him. He's not even using the one drumstick. He's like twirling it around.
Yeah.
He's playing like two. He's hitting like 2 things, and then like maybe the step.
Yeah,
Is that something you want to show off?
I don't know. It's really
Check out what we're
bizarre.
doing.
the percussion here is not really.
He looked kind of
very-
bored, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, that's what happens with a project, with something like this, when you don't have a lot going on in that department. You know, the drummer will get very bored. Like,
It's like when a band does an acoustic set and the drummer's just like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's how it feels. Like, and I haven't very intently listened to every single song, you know, because I had very little time to really ingest it. But I didn't hear any moments where the drummer really got to strut his stuff at all. You know,
Yeah, it seemed like, I guess Alex Turner got like I think it was like a Steinway grand piano for his 30th birthday, and that's like, it seems like that's what spurred this album on. Because like the pianos are like, I think the piano is really solid throughout it, and which hasn't.
It is.
It's not I don't think they've.
it's not an Arctic Monkeys thing. It really is not, and that's what
it is now.
Yeah.
I think that's what contributes so heavily to the sound. And me personally, I mean, I'm kind of biased. I'm a huge sucker for piano. You know, I mean, if you can play it well, like I'm a huge sucker for it, and I think it's beautiful. It's a beautiful instrument, and so their incorporation of it here was both surprising and very welcomed for me, anyway. You know, I mean, Arctic Monkeys to me have always been these scrappy rock band with just heavy bass, heavy instrument, you know, drums, and
their vocals have always been, or the lyrics have always been on point. Though,
very lively
throughout all their stuff.
Yeah.
I think that really carries through.
But here he's kind of meandering. He's kind of Alex Turner, you know, the lead singer. It's a lot less in your face for this. He's very much sitting at a bar, you know, with his glass of whiskey, and he is just telling these events to us, you know, or he's sitting at the piano, you know, on the stage, you know, in the bar, and everyone's listening to him, and this is kind of his tale of woe. You know, it's just a very different feel.
It is,
for this.
but you should go even like on your ride home or whatever, listen to the first song, listen to his like flow in it.
Yeah.
It feels
The
like
first
it's a
song-
rapper's flow.
It does.
It's
It
like
really
so
catches you.
smooth.
Yeah. The first song really caught my attention with the things he was saying and the picture he was painting, and like the tone that he was setting. It was a very good opening track that I think really does set the stage amazingly for what is about to come.
I also love the first line in the album is, "I just wanted to be one of the Strokes."
Yeah, that's how he opens the album. I'm like, this is weird. Right away, I was like, oh, this is not going to be... That's very meta. Like, this is a meta thing to say. This is not going to be like what I was expecting.
Like, I just want to be one of the Strokes, and now look what you made me do.
Yeah, yeah. And I
He's
was
like, look at the mess you made me make. I don't know.
It almost seems like, while I think it does play into the concept theme that they're going for in this album, it almost seems like it's a bit meta, talking about themselves in a sense, you know, and like where they're at in their careers right now. And because I think as described, you know, in like the article I was reading, they talked about, you know, the Arctic Monkeys. They very well could be the band, one of those bands that just like does consistently well. They can just keep releasing decent albums like some of these older rock bands do to this day, you know, and just like putting stuff out and pleasing the fans and just like keeping the same sound and just releasing music to release music.
That's boring though.
It is
It's so
boring.
that, like,
Check that.
what?
Still going?
I
The segment's been
can't.
going well. Yeah, I'm just making sure we got footage.
I mean, we got Lizzie's recording.
And it is boring. And so for this album, it almost seems like it's such a direct response to that kind of opinion some may have had of them, that they could be that band, but they're not going to be, you know?
Also, I think this album makes a lot of their past stuff better. Like if you go back to whatever people say I'm not, that's like, this is like totally different from that. That was
Right.
like to sing about like them clubbing like every week
Yeah.
or whatever. This is like,
It's more mature. It's
it
more,
is. And if they can pull
reserved.
off both of those very well,
they got range.
they got range.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And I think it's exciting. I think it's an exciting, you know, I I don't want to sit here and talk about the Arctic Monkeys forever on one hand, but like I feel like
Unfortunately, Pat's at the board too.
it's
all night.
it's almost it's almost so rare for
Help us.
an artist.
Can we go with you?
We're all happy here.
It's almost so rare for an artist to like surprise me to that degree, where they do transcend kind of the opinion I expect, because I expect a lot of pretty mediocre
it's so
moves.
important for bands to be always changing like that. That's one of the things I like so much about Coheed, is that every album feels different.
It's not just musically though, and I think I've said, I don't know if I've ever said this.
For sure.
I don't know if I ever said this on the podcast, but I say this a lot. You know, I respect to the fullest any artist who, whether or not what they're doing, the new stuff they're doing is amazing or not, you know, the fact that as long as it's different, as long as they're challenging themselves and they're following their vision and they're not going to pander to anybody, you know, I respect that. Like, I respect it. I'm not saying it's always going to be amazing and I'm going to love it because of that, but I do respect them as artists more than I respect someone who would put out something that they knew would be successful, but is not really treading any new ground or anything like that, you know, whether it is good or not. And like, that's why I'll say, even though I grew up with like the Star Wars prequels or something, I always find a way, Pat. Those, you know, George Lucas could have easily went like, well, I'm going to make another trilogy of Star Wars and I'm just going to do the exact same kind of thing that I did with the original trilogy, play the same storyline. Yeah. But instead, you know, he does the prequels. And while the prequels are kind of panned by critics and there are some problems, I think, with the writing and directing and acting a little bit, although that's more, I put more of the acting problems on his directing, not as much the actors themselves. Like, I feel really bad for Hayden Christensen for the flack he gets for that, but you know, he made the prequels and they're very weird and very out there and really not at all like the originals or the kind of storyline that really played out in the originals. And I respect that. I respect him. Like, when I would watch interviews of him talking about those things, like, I would respect that he would do that. And that's what he did with the original Star Wars movies. Like, people all said that they were going to suck. No one would want to watch a movie like that.
Cast didn't think it was going to be any good.
Yeah. And he just went for it anyway. And he stuck to his guns. And like, that's what being a real artist is, you know, whether people are going to love it or hate it, you're going to do what you're going to do because that's your baby, you know?
Be your true self.
And so when musicians do that, when game developers do that, when filmmakers do that, it's like, you got me, dude. You know, like, I'm on board with you as a creator. You know, your new stuff might not be what I'm looking for, but I respect that you have that in you. Because it is very hard. I think it takes a lot of resolve for someone to be like, look, I can see the numbers and I know it would do well if I did that. I'm not going to do that though. And it's like, okay, dude, like, no one's going to like that, but good luck. You know, it takes a lot of strength. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think that's going to have to be the end of this.
Any closing
podcast, that is.
That's the end of
that's
this.
The end of this.
That'll be enough from you. Any closing arguments?
I just say go listen to the album.
Yeah.
I think it's, I don't know. I don't want to like review it because, like Zach said, he was like, do you even listen to music reviews? Because that's, I don't know. I think you should. It's worth a listen. I think that's what I'm going to leave it at.
That's a bold statement. Is that our official stance?
That is our official podcast stance.
I'm all right.
It's worth a listen.
Just listen to it. If you're in the car, you know, for a while, if you're just chilling, you have nothing to do, just put it on. It's good chill music.
It is.
And like I said, it's very cinematic and it has a very, very dramatic sound. It'll make you going to the ATM at midnight.
For some reason.
Yeah, sound exciting. So, yeah, do it and watch Infinity. I'm just kidding. You don't have to watch Infinity War. But new Star Wars coming out soon. Maybe we should boycott it. I don't know. Find out next week when we talk about that. Well, let's leave that out there.
You want to plug where they can find us?
Yeah, it's coming out May 25th. Oh, okay. You can find us Lab 212 everywhere now, not the Poorly Edited Podcast. We did a rebrand. We changed everything. It's official. All the accounts are changed. So if you're confused, you're like, where'd they go? That's where we are. It's Lab 212 now. Lab 212. And that's where you can find us on everything. We just made a new Snapchat as well. Go follow that. We've been snapping during this whole show. We've been like snapping it up.
I can't snap.
The bell's broken. We gotta get a new bell for the renovations. But yeah, so check us out on Lab 212. I'm Sly Elliott on everything else as well for my personal accounts if you want to follow me, which you shouldn't want to. But yeah.
Go to the Lab 212 YouTube page, watch all of our old podcasts, as well as where we should eventually, hopefully pretty soon, have a bunch of new video content up.
Very soon.
Shorts,
that's a bold statement, actually.
vlogs.
It's worth a listen if you want to head over to our YouTube.
So if you're still confused about the whole rebranding thing, there's going to be a video up there that's going to hold your hand and tell you everything's going to be okay.
And check out our Twitch Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
We start around 6, go to like at least 10.
But sometimes you guys stream at weird times, like you streamed
today,
this morning.
Which is fine.
And I think, am I still filling in for you next week?
No, tomorrow, if possible.
Okay, well, that was good notice. So I'll be streaming tomorrow.
I'll watch that while I edit this.
Yeah.
And thanks for listening, and see you next week.
See you guys.
Bye.
Actually, wait, this is Mungo's track. He also did the intro. Make sure to check him out.
This is Mungo's new track. It's unreleased. He's coming out with a new EP soon. This is a sneak peek, first listen of his new track. Enjoy it. Mungo, coming soon. Bandcamp.